Well, good morning, Ph.D. Welcome to Doctors and Scientists, and happy Friday. You know who we haven't talked to in too long of a time? And she's like my bud and has acted as co-host for Doctors and Scientists. And I am remiss. And so my introduction is actually an apology as well to Dr. Nancy Tarlow. Dr. Tarlow, Nancy, welcome back to the show. And what is wrong with me?
You're great, Brian. You're just very busy and it's fine. Don't worry
How
about it.
how have you been? It seems like we haven't seen you in like forever, and we're gonna fix that. But thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I've been busy working on something called Blueprint to Heal, which will be a direction people can take to work on healing any kind of chronic health issue. And I have certain principles and foundations that will be included. So, there's the first thing that you do when working on healing your body. Then what's the second thing and the third thing? So, a lot of people tend to like dive into detoxification, for instance, but they either their GI system isn't working right or they haven't dealt with their nervous system, getting that regulated, and they're doing things in a backward order. So the goal of this program will be to really get people getting into it with the right foundations so that they can work on healing their body from the inside out.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, especially, I'm an autism dad. When individuals, when families first get a diagnosis of a family member, you really don't know what order to do things. To say, and so many times we felt so frantic. It's like, oh, we got to do everything right now, and we lost any sense of like being systematic, being able to figure out what works, what doesn't work. And so this sounds like that's really going to address that.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really important to me is that, especially if you have a child with chronic health problems,
Hmm.
is the parents are stressed out too. So
Right.
this program is going to allow people to take these same strategies, apply them to themselves, and then also for their kids, because otherwise there becomes this vicious cycle of stress. So I really want to deal with the whole family unit. If you have a child that's chronic health problems, has autism, and whatever issues relate to that, but more than likely the parents have issues too because they're
Oh, no
so
doubt.
stressed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much stress involved, and there's so much, I mean, they've done studies on autism moms, and the PTSD is comparable to, soldiers that have been doing combat. And so there's so much healing that has to go on, and you can only put it off for so long. I mean, take it from me. Do not take care of your child at the expense of taking care of you. It will not work. You're not going to do either one of you any good.
And we know that stress is the leading cause of heart disease, right?
Right.
We know that. I mean, it's a fact, it's undisputed. And but we also know that stress can either exacerbate or cause other health problems. So that in fact that's what we're going to be talking about today is how does stress affect the body? How does it affect the nervous system? And once we can get the nervous system regulated, once we can get the nervous system working as it should, then you can probably take, let's say you had 15 health issues. Just by getting
Hmm.
that nervous system regulated, maybe 8 of them will go away, 8 of those health issues.
Right.
And then you can focus on the things that are gonna make the biggest difference quickly. And, to me, that's so important because you don't hear the medical community talking about it. So that's why it's really important that we do that.
I love talking about the nervous system because really without dealing with it, so many and again, applying to my own situation, so many kids with some type of spectrum diagnosis or ADHD or whatever are in some level of fight or flight. They are,
Yep.
and when depending on the severity of that level of fight or flight, then it gets in the way of everything. It gets in the way of detox. It gets in the way of education. You want to see your wonderful special child advance to be able to, whatever type of therapy modalities you're doing. But really, if they're in fight or flight, I mean, it is so difficult to accomplish really anything else.
Yeah, and I'm a chiropractor. So as a chiropractor, once I figured that out, I started using techniques that really focused on engaging what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the nervous system that returns everything back to balance. So we have the sympathetic, which is when we're in fight or flight, or when like right now, our sympathetics are going because we're having this conversation. We need our brain to work. But when we get done and we're trying to relax, we need those parasympathetics to kick in. So I used to have patients coming in. For instance, I had a woman who was so severely constipated, she was going to the bathroom every 10 days. And I
My
thought, oh my God, this is crazy. Well, as it turns out, she was a single mom of 2 kids. She had a sales job, she had a mortgage, and she had all these stressors hitting her from every angle. Plus, she was someone who liked to do like aerobics. So rather than doing a very calming kind of exercise, she was just constantly burning the candle at both ends, just pushing, pushing, pushing. And when she first started coming to me, now she had been to a lot of different chiropractors over the years, and she would get short-term benefit. And I started doing a technique called Logan Basic with her, which directly affects the parasympathetics, gets that person out of fight or flight. And within, 2 weeks, she was going to the bathroom every day. I mean, it was really that simple. No supplements, no fancy machines. It was just changing the technique to something that activated or facilitated the parasympathetics. Now, in addition, I also told her, look, stop doing aerobics, start doing maybe a very calming kind of yoga, do restorative yoga practices, look for another job, get out of this rabbit wheel that you're on, or it's not a rabbit, I can't remember what it's called, but the wheel.
hamster, gerbil, whatever. Yeah,
Gerbil wheel, yeah, I'm like, "You're
gerbil
on
wheel.
this
Yeah,
gerbil wheel, you've got all this stress, so, like, I can do all these great things with you, but if you go home and you don't make any changes, it's gonna be hard for you to maintain it." So, she wound up getting a job. She's a scientist. She wound up getting a
right.
job as a scientist. She had that steady paycheck coming. She changed her lifestyle activities, and guess what? She did great. Like, it was a total turnabout. So, that's why, working on the nervous system is so, so important, and there's different techniques you can do to engage the parasympathetics. I'm a chiropractor, so I like chiropractic, but there are other ways you can affect the nervous system.
Speaking to this particular audience, it is sort of embodied by stress. I mean, there's so much stress in having a child in distress. And I think that you said something important earlier, which is you want the whole family involved. That,
Definitely.
if you are working towards lowering the stress of your wonderful special child, what I find is that if I'm amped up, he's an empath. He will pick it up, and that will send him into some level of dysregulation.
And, to that point, my daughter, who's not a special needs child,
Right.
I mean, fortunately, I'd had enough experience, or unfortunately, I had enough experience working with vaccine-injured kids. I did not give her any vaccines. But I would find that when she was acting up and really out of sorts, I had to put a mirror up to my face and said, "Oh, she is responding directly to my stress. So
Mhm.
I'm not yelling at her, but she's picking up on this weird energy that I had because I was so stressed out. And once I identified that that was a problem for me, it actually made me more persuasive to my parents about why they needed to get the care too, and not just take care of their kids. That story about, you put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? If you're on an
Right.
airplane before you put
Right.
on your child. So it's that same thing. Is your cup full or is it half empty? If your cup is full, for one thing, you're going to be able to think clearer about how to help your children, but they're also going to pick up on that level of stress that you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
Talk about how you would deal with this. I mean, getting somebody out of fight or flight, um, from a chiropractic perspective. And, when you're around chiropractors, I was at the Save the Babies conference this weekend where we both spoke, and it was wonderful. Hey, John, just an amazing, amazing guy. I can't wait for the next Save the Babies conference. But you hear this word called subluxation. What is that?
Oh, yes, a tough one. And it
Oh,
sounds like
okay.
an easy
Sorry.
question, but
Take your
what's
time.
happened is, so basically we think about, we have a vertebra on top of a vertebra.
Right.
So the traditional way of thinking about subluxation is when the vertebra goes out position even a little bit. And traditionally it was, said that, well, it's putting pressure on the nerve, which is then affecting the organs. But actually research is showing that you can have subluxation. Basically, you can have trauma or thoughts in your brain, and that can actually cause vertebra to, subluxate. So it's becoming a little more complex with the research that's out there. For
Mhm.
instance, there was a time we thought that only adjusting the upper neck could then
Right.
affect the brain, but now they're finding that even adjusting lower parts of the spine will improve brain function as well. So it's not just the upper neck. And Dr. Monique Andrews is doing a lot of work in this area. She's a chiropractor. She's a neurological chiropractor. Heidi Harvick, Haavik. She's
Mhm.
based out of either Australia or New Zealand. She's doing a lot of work in this area too. And they both would be great guests because they could really dive into the science about all this. Basically, what's happening is there's an interruption or a blockage that's affecting the energy that's
Right.
going from the brain down your spinal cord. Just so you can understand this better. So we have the spine, and out of this, each vertebra comes spinal nerves, which then go to all the organs. But on top of the spine lays the autonomic nervous system. So if you could see the green nerves that are coming from the top of the spine, going to the eyes, going to the heart, going to the lungs, and from the base, we see from the sacrum, we see going to like the bladder and the large intestines. So that's the parasympathetic nervous system. So the nerves are exiting the top of the spine and going to every organ and every cell in the body, but it's also coming from the lower part of the spine. And then
Mhm.
in between, we have the sympathetic nervous system, which are the yellow lines. So basically, between the about the second or third vertebra down to right before the sacrum is where we have the sympathetic nervous system. So
Mhm.
the reason why this is important is as chiropractors, when we're adjusting the spine, we can either affect more of the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight, that survival mode. And that's we're going to see increase in heart rate, respiration, brain function, but we're going to see a decrease in reproductive and digestion. And why this is important is if you're in that fight or flight mode all the time, it's going to cause stress to the heart. This is the connection we talked about earlier, where chronic stress is causing problems with, heart problems, right? It could be
Right.
causing problems with the lung, but it's also going to cause changes in brain function. why people are having difficulty focusing, why there's ADD and ADHD. It's because they're stuck in that sympathetic survival mode. But it will also cause problems with reproduction and digestion. So when you're, decide, okay, I'm going to treat myself, I'm going to take a bunch of supplements that are going to help, but you're in this fight or flight mode, your whole GI tract may not be functioning as it should, and therefore may not be able to process those supplements and can in turn cause more problems. So then we want to bring everything back into balance by focusing on the parasympathetics, right? Those green nerves that you see. So there are some chiropractors like myself who will focus more on that parasympathetics. It could be an upper cervical chiropractor. It could be
Mhm.
one that does the Logan technique or something called network spinal analysis. And honestly, there's 100 different chiropractic techniques. There might be other techniques that also do this that I'm just not aware of. So
Mhm.
I'm not limiting the number of techniques. I'm just saying that, those are the ones I'm familiar with because they're the ones I've personally used. So understanding this whole dynamic is really important for bringing that body back into balance, which is then going to allow you to start to heal from within.
Just a quick question and observation, and if this isn't really anything, it's just sort of a random observation. It looks like most of the sympathetic system comes from the brainstem. It
Yeah,
comes
so
specifically from the brainstem, and with a little, there was one branch from the sacrum, from
right.
that area, but the rest of it comes directly from the brainstem. Is that important, or is that just sort of
It's really
physiological?
important, right?
Okay.
So Logan technique is where you're stimulating the parasympathetic through what's called the sacral tuberous ligament, which is a ligament that runs from midway down or towards the bottom of the sacrum towards the
Mhm.
ischial tuberosity, which is that sitting bone. When you're sitting, you feel that bone in your butt. That's the
Right.
ischial tuberosity. So there's a high concentration of parasympathetic nerve fibers there, which, as you can see, is coming from the sacrum, right? But then the upper cervical techniques are so effective in helping restore that, parasympathetic, nervous system balance because so much of it is coming from this area. So that also leads me to talk about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is it's key for managing our body's inflammation, but also the vagus nerve is key for getting us out of that fight or flight state, and it is coming out of the upper neck and coming down, and you can see it's then innervating or affecting the heart and the lungs, and then comes down further. It goes to all the digestive organs, the liver, the stomach, the colon. It affects the kidney and the spleen. So the vagus nerve is another way, if you think about the, just your everyday person could work on getting that parasympathetics back into balance and bringing your body back into homeostasis. So again, certain chiropractic techniques is going to work on that vagus nerve. There are other
Mhm.
things like deep belly breathing. When you do deep belly breathing, it's causing the diaphragm to expand and the vagus nerve goes through the diaphragm. So if you can
Right.
really focus on doing that deep belly breathing, you can stimulate the vagus nerve on your own. There are
Okay.
vagus nerve stimulators that you can use. I was talking about one this weekend called the Illuminator, which I used on my dog who was really sick 2 weeks ago. I thought he was
Mhm.
dying. He was in a severe state of fight or flight, and
Right.
the adjustments alone weren't helping him. I started using this vagus nerve stimulator. Boom, his body calmed down, his breathing normal, and then his body could start to heal. Being out in nature, doing grounding exercises, thinking about just getting off the phone and hugging a tree, are really great, but also things like humming. Humming also stimulate the vagus nerve. So you
Mhm.
don't need these fancy tools. You just have to be disciplined and use them.
Talk about belly breathing. How is that going to look? How, because I love that. I used to be in band and choir, and so belly breathing was the big thing because you were pushing from your diaphragm, in order to maintain breath support. But how does that look? How should if I say consciously, okay, I'm going to do belly breathing. What is that going to look like?
Well, first of all, if first thing you have to do is ascertain, are you breathing from your chest or are you
Hmm.
breathing from your belly? So if you take
Okay.
a breath in and you feel your chest rise, that's chest breathing. If you can take a breath in, you're putting your hand on your lower belly and you feel your hand being pushed out. Like you see, you don't see my chest rising at
Right.
all.
Right.
That means you already know how to breathe from your belly. But a lot of people, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to teach this, and I do it with the hands on the chest and the belly intentionally, and it's still difficult. So, a great thing to do is lie on your back, put a heavy
Hmm.
book on your belly, and as you breathe in, say, okay, I'm going to push this book towards the ceiling. That is
Okay.
the best way to, like, retrain your brain to think about the belly as the source of your breath rather than your chest. Like, for me to breathe from my chest is so hard because I've been belly breathing for so many years. So to take that a little deeper, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna breathe in, let's say on a count of 4, you're going to hold it for a count of 4. And when you breathe out, you want to try to make your exhalation longer than your inhalation. So as you breathe in, you want the book to go towards the ceiling. You're going to hold it for a count of 4. And then as you breathe out, you're going to let that book go back towards your spine as you breathe out, and then you're going to hold it then again for a count of 6. So it'd be great if you can get to the point where your exhalations are double what your inhalations are, but I don't
Right.
want you to like get stressed out trying to make that happen. Start
Get in fight
simple.
or flight, trying to get out of fight or flight.
Right, so
Um,
if you do nothing else but just belly breathe initially, don't even worry about counting, and then just
mhm.
graduate, "Okay, I'm gonna do breathe in on a count of 4, I'm gonna hold it for a count of 4, and then breathe out on count of 6." So, when somebody's been in this stressed out state for a long time, that is not gonna be easy, so it's important that, if you're working with your son, for instance, that you, like,
Right.
urge him to be patient, that it's gonna take a little time, and that's okay. But once he masters it, then he can do it sitting, he can do it standing. But I definitely suggest start doing it in a lying down position.
Like, yeah,
That
okay.
will be the easiest for everybody.
I'm such a fan. I mean, we do it already, and it does take him sort of instantaneously. It will I don't know if he's all the way out of fight or flight, but it will lower. Oh, look, the threshold to where we can learn. I mean, if we're doing a spelling session or we're doing math or whatever, he needs that threshold to be lowered because otherwise, the level of fight or flight, he's just not educable at that particular state. So, we've
Yeah.
used belly breathing a lot. I'm a huge fan. So I'm excited that you talked about that. Now, with the vagus nerve,
Well, before we move on, so
yeah,
I
go ahead.
wanna
I'm sorry.
suggest that he start doing that during the day periodically. Don't
Hmm.
do it just, like, before or during a spelling session. So start out practicing it, because if he practices enough during the day, you might
Right.
find he doesn't even get into that fight or flight state. The other thing, the reason why he also is having a harder time in his spelling sessions is because we have these 4 main brainwave states. We have beta, which is the brainwave state that's involved when we're processing information. And,
Hmm.
when we're trying to work a problem, we're in that beta state. But it's also the primary brainwave state too when we're in that fight or flight, when we're in survival mode, when we're fleeing that tiger and trying to come up with a solution to the problem. We're in that fight or flight state. We're in that beta state. Alpha, which is that meditative state, is also
Right.
where we release serotonin. It's important that we be able to go back and forth between alpha and beta when we need it. Theta is that light sleep or creative brainwave state. That's also the brainwave state we're in when we're working on healing the body. So that's important too. But we also need theta then to go into that delta, that deep sleep where we dream. So
Hmm.
when we're in fight or flight, we're in that beta state. We're quickly trying to access the problem. But if we're in it too long, if we're in that state the majority of the day, and we can't pull up that alpha calming brainwave state when we need it, it makes focus more difficult. So let's say I'm preparing to do a speech and I'm pretty
Okay.
chill, I'm calm. I want to get into that beta brainwave state while I'm delivering my talk, but I want to be able to get out of it later. So for people that are in this fight or flight state all the time, what happens is we get stuck in there and it causes major problems with focus. And that's the reason why with him, if you could start doing this breathing exercise with him during the course of the day, even if he goes into it with, SC2, hopefully you can pull him right out and then he can focus again.
That is so helpful. And when, let's say, when he's in beta and he needs to calm down, does that mean that his brainwave will, as he's calming down, transition momentarily into alpha? Is that the goal? And we're
It
looking. I
should
know we're
be.
not like okay,
Yeah.
okay, because it makes good sense. I mean, too much fight or flight. Fight or flight is a good thing when it's appropriate.
I do work with brainwave entrainment, right? The brain tap
Hmm.
device that you use, right? That's the idea of that is to retrain the brain to be able to pull up the different brainwave states when it's needed. What I find though is some people, because they're so chill and relaxed all the time, they're, like some people that are like in the clouds and you got to bring them
Right.
back down. Those people actually need more beta, right? So somebody
Hmm.
like that, I would actually, have them listen to beta tracks. But I could say, 95% of people I've worked with over the years, they need more alpha. When they get alpha, boom, then they can focus.
And by talking about tracks, you're talking about brain tap.
Yeah. Well, it could be,
Okay.
there's like some free stuff out there, that
Right.
you can
Right.
find.
Okay.
The problem with those other apps, which I actually tried before I learned about BrainTap, is that you can then get stuck in another brainwave state that isn't healthy for you either. And that's the reason why I like BrainTap so much, is it cycles through all the different brainwave states to create a healthier brain that can go in and out of those different brainwave states we need, rather than getting stuck in beta or alpha. And I'm generalizing here. There's a lot deeper information here, but for the sake of the podcast, I think it's better to focus on what people can grasp, because it is very complicated.
It makes good sense. I love the way that you break it down. One of the things that um, you talked about this weekend was talking about sleeping in delta, and the purpose of dreams. What does healthy sleep look like?
It's definitely not getting up every hour.
No, no.
You need at least a solid 3 or 4 hours to get into REM sleep. And
Right.
that's essential. The way you know that you could identify it is that, are you experiencing dreams? Dreams is how we process our emotions. So it's important that we dream every night. Otherwise, you may sleep for 8 hours straight, but if you're not dreaming, you're probably not getting into that deep REM state that we need for healthy sleep that allows our body to start to heal itself.
Wow. That it's so important, and it's something that I think that as you are practicing this, as you're practicing these particular techniques, that would you expect REM sleep to follow from that?
Yes. So for
Okay.
me, and I'm going to use BrainTap as an example because,
Sure.
it's something that I've used since January 2012. I have 40 years of chronic insomnia and depression. And I started using Brain Tap, and I first started sleeping in 3-hour increments, then 4-hour increments. I started having the craziest dreams that,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't even want to tell you what they were. It was like crazy, scary, disturbing, but all of a sudden it shifted to really positive and uplifting dreams. And then within about 6 weeks, I started sleeping in 6 to 8 hour increments. So what was happening is, because I wasn't sleeping well at night, my body was trying to get into that dream state during the day. And that was part of what made focusing so difficult. And I only learned about that because I have had, different evaluations done on my brain, and I could see
Mm-hmm.
exactly what was going on during the day. So I was getting into delta during the day when I should have been getting into it at night.
That makes really good sense. I mean, that whole, I can't focus, I'm daydreaming, is a deficit of delta where it's appropriate, and it's creeping up into the times where, it's just like you can't do delta. So you
Yep.
start to, daydream. What are you doing with Blueprint to Heal? And you've ramped up your own webcast, right?
Yeah, so I'm getting ready to release my Blueprint to Heal podcast, where I'm interviewing a lot of different people with different perspectives on what it takes to heal the body. And I'm, putting the finishing touches on a coaching program that will help people get all the information they need, but also have their hands held to walk them through the
Mhm.
process. Too often we've tried to do it on our own. We watch videos and we're like, oh, I can do it on my own. And 6 months later, we're still struggling. So the whole purpose of my coaching program is to be there to answer the questions and to really be supportive and help people go through these steps so they can heal themselves and heal their children.
It's so good, so worthwhile, and I think it's so important not to do it alone.
Yes, to have that accountability and feel like you have that support.
Okay. Do you have a website for Blueprint to Heal yet? Is that something coming up, or?
BlueprintToHeal.com.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. I can remember that. So no, so good.
I'm
Dr.
still working
Nancy.
on it, but I grabbed, I kind of
Yeah.
chose the name of the program by the domain name I was able to get. So it just worked out really well because to me it is a blueprint. It's not a one size fits all, and that's
Right.
the point of having me there as a coach, so I can help make those changes as necessary.
That's so exciting. This is going to help lots of people. And this is information that people need. And so I can't thank you enough for doing that. We want to have you back on, as this progresses, and as you're doing more coaching, just to hear your experiences, learn more at the same time, because this information is so vital. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this important episode of Doctors and Scientists. Tell your friends they need to watch this particular episode, and have a great Friday.
All right, we are live. Can you tell us your names? What's your name?
Gabriella.
And Heidi.
And so your mum too.
Yes, I'm
Gabriella.
Gabby.
And Gabriella, this is about a story about your son.
Yes.
Okay, so he's the fourth of your.
Yes.
You have three girls, and then you have Dino.
Yep.
And did you ever at any point question vaccinations?
No, not until now.
Okay, so let's talk about Dino. When you were pregnant with him, did you have any shots when you were pregnant?
I had one. I think it was. I forgot what it was for them, for the babies, for when. I forgot, the
Maybe
Tdap or something.
Tdap, yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And so when he was born, how was he?
He was good. He was almost 9.5 pounds.
He was a big boy.
He was my biggest.
And you were in hospital?
Yes, I had a C-section with him, and I went full term.
Okay, and did they give him vitamin K and Hep B at birth?
Yes.
All right, you take the story from here. Tell us what happened.
So he was completely healthy. He was a year old, a little over 30 pounds, and I brought him to get his 1-year-old vaccines, not right at his 1-year-old, because he had an ear infection prior. And when I brought him, I made sure they checked his ears and went through everything to make sure he was healthy, and they said he was good. He had the MMR, Hep A, Hep B, and the varicella, and then on a Tuesday, and he never woke up Thursday morning.
So it happened in the night.
Yes. It happened Wednesday in the middle of the night.
But there's a discrepancy in that too, because one report said
Yeah, his shot records that they print out to hand to the parents says all those shots, and then where they write what the shots are and everything, said they gave him the pneumonia shot instead of the Hep A or Hep B.
So someone made a mistake.
Yes.
He got a shot that he shouldn't have had.
Yes.
We're not sure because one paper says one thing and another paper says another thing.
Yeah. And we have the proof and everything.
So what happened then? You find Dino and he's...
So we find him and he's already way too far gone, and they're trying to say that it was from SIDS. But
Was he in bed with you?
No, he was in his crib with an adult-sized pillow, which the doctor said that was okay to have because he was so strong and mobile and able to stand up and almost walking.
And he could lift his head up and everything.
Let's see some pictures of him. So basically, they're saying that it's not shots.
Yes.
No. Right.
So he had the shots on.
Picture of him.
Oh, happy smiley baby.
He was a very happy boy.
He was. Any room you walk into, he was smiling, laughing, pointing. His favorite thing was pointing and what's that?
Have you filed this?
Yes. We have a lawyer and everything involved.
And
that
how
was-
long ago did this happen?
So his birthday's December 20th, and he passed January 5th of this year.
So it's really raw for you.
Yes, and there's no closure. We haven't had closure, so everything that keeps getting rehashed is just...
So when you found him, what happened then? Did you call 911? What happens?
So I work in the morning, and so does my significant other, and my significant other's aunt actually comes over and watches our son, and she's the one that actually found my son. But I have a baby monitor in my son's room that points right at his crib where you can see him, and he was lying on his belly. He was a belly sleeper, and his head was turned out facing his closet door, and she's the one that found him. She called me. We called 911. I came home, and I'm the one that picked him up out of his crib and called. By the time I did that, everybody was rushing in to get to him, and they said they couldn't save him. He was too far gone.
So he didn't go to hospital. It was that.
It was, yeah. They said he died between 1 and 4 a.m.
Was he ill that day before?
No, well, the night before he had a low-grade fever, which my boyfriend gave him Motrin, which is normal, and that broke, and he threw up a little bit. It was nothing crazy, and then he was fine. That was it. He wasn't showing no other symptoms, no nothing.
So then did people come around to the house and investigate?
Oh,
Yes, we have CPS investigating us. CPS is actually accusing me of killing my child, of me suffocating my child.
What?
there's no closure, and with this,
What?
with them-
Wait, what? Why would they do that?
They're doing it because I'm responsible for my son at night and my boyfriend isn't.
because she's the mother. They're blaming it on her. They're not looking into the doctor's records, nothing.
And the doctors are stating that my son was way too mobile and well overweight to die of SIDS.
He was too mobile and overweight.
Well, not like overweight, but he reached his weight limit to sleep with a pillow in his
Right.
crib. They approved of him sleeping with a pillow where
They're saying that
CPS
he shouldn't
doesn't.
have been. There shouldn't have been a pillow in crib.
There shouldn't have been nothing in his crib with him. So they're basically saying that I went in my son's room in the middle of the night and held my son's head into his pillow and suffocated my son.
And this report is it's just ongoing.
I'm unfortunately on CPS's record until he turns 28 years old, even though my son is not physically here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How are the girls doing?
They're doing okay. They have their moments, but they're doing okay.
And they get counseling through school, which the school system, the support there has been wonderful. But it's just, we can't heal. We can't heal.
No.
And this is your baby.
This is my youngest, yes.
And for you, it's to see your baby in this
Oh.
level of pain and to have lost your grandson. It
Mhm.
must be unbearable
Mhm.
for you and your husband.
Because I would rather that baby be here with his mother and his dad and his sisters, and I would be up in heaven. I'd give anything for
I know.
that. I would.
And this is all because
Oh, shots.
of shots.
Too many all at one time. And everybody is different. Every baby, every child is different. They react different. And doctors don't see this.
And it says he went into heart failure. On the toxicology report, it says he went into heart failure. So how does he go into heart failure? Obviously he was reacting to the shot, which caused him to go into the heart failure.
The awful thing about this is you were being, in their eyes, the perfect mother. You took your children to get their shots. You did everything that you were asked of
Yep.
by them. And when their shots kill your baby, they're after you. It is so evil. It's so deceptive, so evil, it's
Yes.
barbaric. And your family forever, ever have to live with this
Mhm.
because of them and their lies.
Mhm.
Are we done vaccinating in your family?
As of right now, I am. Especially against my 3 girls. I am very against it right now. I'm very scared.
Mhm.
Like I said, I have 3 other girls, and they've had every single shot since, they are all up to date on the shots. And they pushed me to get the flu shot. I won't even get the flu shot. I won't get my kids the flu shot.
How old are your children?
My twins will be 9 in next week, and then I have a 6-year-old.
They're going to come for those girls with the Gardasil HPV. That is the most dangerous shot. They absolutely cannot have that. Have you seen the outside of this bus?
Yes.
Mhm. Oh,
Have you seen these people are dead here from the HPV shot?
And now is that the MMR?
No.
The HPV Gardasil for cervical.
Okay.
They will tell you that this will prevent cancer in your girls. It's a lie. And
Nothing's...
the children, the girls' ovaries are shutting down. It is the most injurious vaccine of all, in my opinion. They're all bad, but this one is disgusting. We have some books outside. I'm gonna give you, okay? Just know, the people watching here, there's so much love going out to you now, and there's, as you can see, these babies here that we have up here. There are countless mothers like you that have gone through the same thing. You're not on your own. Doesn't make it any better. But there's a whole world of mothers like you out there, and you telling your story just might save one baby.
That's what I try to. If I know somebody that is pregnant or has children under the age of 1 or anything, I'm trying to tell them not to get all the shots at once, or not even to get it if they don't have to, just because pushing it all at once is crazy. Because if something like this happens, you don't know where exactly which one it is or what it's from.
I'm going to give you some stuff so you guys can see the dangers of them all. But thank you so much, and we're so sorry. And we're going to put a picture of Dino on the bus
Thank you.
so he can travel with us along with all the other babies.
Thank you.